All right, let's talk about something that's probably been a real headache for a lot of you Android developers out there. You've got your awesome clean dependency graph with Hilt, and you've got your powerful background tasks running with Work Manager. But getting those two to talk to each other, yeah, that can be a pain. Well, today we're going to fix that. Let's dive in. So you know the deal, right? It's a classic problem. You're trying to do something in the background, like sync data, and you need your API service or your database DAO inside your worker. But getting them in there feels like you're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. You know this is what you want to do, but it's just not obvious how to make it happen. And this right here is the heart of the problem, visualized. On the left, you've got the standard worker constructor that Work Manager gives us. It's kind of locked down. You only get a context and worker parameters. But on the right, that's the dream. That's what we need. A constructor that's open for business, ready to accept our API service, our database, whatever we want. So how do we get there? Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, like so many things in Android development, it all starts in our Gradle file. Before we write a single line of Kotlin, we got to make sure our project is set up with all the right tools for the job. Now, the absolute star of the show here is this Hilt work library. This is the official magic wand from Google that makes this whole thing possible. You'll add this right alongside your usual Work Manager and Hilt dependencies, make sure you're using KSP for the compilers, and of course, these versions might change, so always do a quick check for the latest and greatest. All right, our dependencies are all sorted. Now for the fun part, actually building a worker class that can take in our injected objects. This is where we write the code that brings it all together. It really just boils down to using these three key annotations. First, you slap @HiltWorker on top of your class. That's you tapping Hilt on the shoulder and saying, hey, you're in charge of building this one. Then you use @AssistedInject on the constructor, which tells Hilt, okay, I'm going to need you to provide some things, but Work Manager is going to help out with a couple others. And finally, you use @Assisted to point out exactly which parameters Work Manager is bringing to the party. And here's what that looks like in real code. The big idea here is that Hilt is now the one creating this worker, not Work Manager directly. And because Hilt is in control, we can just ask for our My API service right there in the constructor, just like we would anywhere else. It's super clean, super simple, and we can finally say goodbye to messy things like service locators or passing singletons around. So we've got our shiny new worker all ready for injection. But hold on, we're not quite there yet. See, we've told Hilt how to build the worker, but we haven't told Work Manager to actually ask Hilt to do it. This takes a little bit of a one-time setup in our application class. So here's the secret sauce. By default, Work Manager just kind of starts itself up automatically when your app launches. We need to stop that. We need to take control. And the way we do that is by switching to something called on-demand initialization. This basically means Work Manager will sit back and wait for us to tell it how to configure itself. This is the move that lets us plug our Hilt-powered factory into the system. And all of this magic happens right inside your application class. It's actually a pretty straightforward three-step dance. First, you make your application class implement an interface called configuration.provider. Second, you inject the special Hilt worker factory. And third, you just hand that factory over to Work Manager in a custom configuration. And check out the code. Our My Application class, it's already at Hilt Android app, right? Now it just also implements configuration provider. We inject that Hilt worker factory at the top. Then in this Work Manager configuration getter, we build a new configuration. And here's the key line, set worker factory. We tell it, hey, use this factory that Hilt gave me. From now on, anytime Work Manager needs a worker, it's going to use our factory, which knows all about Hilt. Okay, we are so close, but there's one last super important gotcha. If you forget this one, your app will crash and you'll be scratching your head wondering why. We've just told our app how to initialize Work Manager, but the library also has its own default initializer. We have to get rid of it to avoid a conflict. And the fix is right here in your Android manifest.xml. You add this provider entry. And the most important part is this little attribute right here, tools.node equals remove. That is pure magic. It tells the build system, hey, see that default initializer from the Work Manager library? Yeah, just get rid of it for me. And just like that, the conflict is gone. Okay, deep breath. All that setup is done. Now we get to see the payoff. Let's look at just how ridiculously easy it is to actually schedule our new supercharged worker.
And would you look at that? Inside our home view model, which is also managed by Hilt, we can now just inject the Work Manager instance itself. How cool is that? From this point on, it's just plain old Work Manager code. You build a request for our My Data Sync worker, you enqueue it, and you're done. All that configuration work just melts away into this one beautiful, simple piece of code. It just works.
Whew, okay, that was a lot. I know. So let's just boil it all down into a quick cheat sheet. If you're going to remember anything, these are the key things you need to know. So think of it like 4 pillars holding this whole thing up. First, you've got @HiltWorker on the class. Second, @AssistInject on the constructor to mix and match dependencies. Third, @Assisted on the parameters that Work Manager provides. And fourth, the big one, the foundation, that custom configuration where you provide the HiltWorker factory and nuke the default initializer in the manifest. Nail those 4 things, and you are golden. And that is it. That's how you get Hilt and Work Manager to play nicely together, finally unlocking the power to build really robust, testable background tasks. You've now got access to your entire dependency graph, so the only question left is, what awesome, complex thing are you going to build next? Thanks for joining me.